You know what I'm in the mood for today? I'm in the mood for rich, delicious chocolate cake with chocolate buttercream frosting. Doesn't that sound amazing? I hope it does, because that's what I'm showing you how to make today on this Homestead Kitchen Skills. Hey friends, this is Angela from Art of Creation Homestead, and I'm coming to you with another Homestead Kitchen Skills. Today we will be making a homemade, made from scratch chocolate cake, and it's going to be so easy that you're going to realize I don't need that box mix. I can make this at home with stuff I have in the house all the time. It's that easy. And as a bonus, I'm also going to show you how to make an amazing chocolate buttercream frosting to top this off. And also, before I get started, please excuse the sound of my heat. It's spring, but it's a cold day, so there's going to be some heat running. Let's get started. First thing you need to do, you need to preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Then you need to decide whether you want a layer cake or a sheet cake, because this will make enough batter for a 2-layer cake, either a 9-inch or an 8-inch, either one, or a 13 by 9. Whichever you want, you can make whatever you want, depends on what you want that day. Today, because this isn't for a special occasion or anything like that, and the oven's preheated, because this isn't for a special occasion or anything like that, today I'm just going to make a 13 by 9. I'm just going to make a sheet cake because it's easier. But like I said, it will also make a 2-layer cake, either an 8-inch or a 9-inch. Either one will work perfect. Now let's get to those ingredients. In this bowl, we have 1 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour. We have 1 cup of granulated sugar. We have 1 cup of packed light brown sugar. By splitting the sugars, I think the brown sugar gives the cake a better texture, and it brings out the chocolate flavor better. We have 3/4 cup of cocoa powder. I'm using natural cocoa powder. You can use Dutch processed, but your cake will be richer. But it's 3/4 cup of cocoa powder, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda, and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Now, we are just going to mix all of those ingredients together. I'm just using a whisk because it'll help me break up the brown sugar. That whisk will help break up the brown sugar. You can use a hand mixer or a stand mixer for this, but you don't have to. It will mix beautifully just by hand. And that's how I'm going to mix it today, because I'm going to show you just how easy it is to make a homemade chocolate cake without that box mix. You do not need a box mix to make a good cake. Now all of our dry ingredients are mixed together. So now we're going to start adding our wet ingredients. We are going to add 2 large eggs and 1 egg yolk. That 1 egg yolk is going to make a lot of difference in it. It's going to make a more fudgier crumb. It's going to make for a much better crumb to this cake. So you want to do that. Now we are going to add 1 cup of a neutral flavored oil, whatever oil you choose. A neutral flavored oil would be canola oil, vegetable oil, avocado oil, anything that's neutral flavored that doesn't really have a flavor on its own. I'm using 1 cup. I choose to use oil rather than butter because I think butter kind of tends to make for a stiffer, not as moist, a little dry cake. So I tend to want to use oil in my cake. You get a much more moist texture. And to me, I don't like dry chocolate cake. I just don't like dry chocolate cake. And at this point, you see it's very, very stiff. You want to start mixing that stuff in though. And you also want to add in 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. You guys know that those are going to be roughly measured teaspoons because I don't measure vanilla. And you want to mix all of that together. You want to get all that oil and eggs and egg yolk mixed into your dry ingredients. And it's going to make almost like a paste. It's going to be so thick. But don't be alarmed. We are about to loosen that up. You want to take the time to do this step so that it breaks up the lumps in your brown sugar and in your cocoa powder. And don't leave lumps behind when you have your finished product because you want a nice smooth cake batter. Now to this mixture, we are going to add 1 cup of buttermilk. If you do not have buttermilk, you can just use whole milk, but it's not going to be as moist. Your cake's going to be a little bit drier. It's not going to be as moist. So you probably do want to go with buttermilk. If you don't have buttermilk, if you don't keep buttermilk on hand, you can do 1 cup of regular milk and add a little lemon juice or a little white vinegar to it, just a little splash, that's all it takes. Half a teaspoon, just a little splash, half a teaspoon to a teaspoon, basically just a splash. Leave it sit for about 5 minutes and you can use that as a buttermilk alternative. It's not going to be buttermilk. Don't let people fool you into thinking that that's buttermilk. It is not buttermilk. It's a buttermilk alternative because buttermilk is actually a cultured product. So it's not going to be buttermilk. Now, you want to start mixing that in. And once it gets to that stage where it's not fully mixed in this cup, we have 1/2 cup. We have a 1/2 cup of hot water. You want really hot water. And to that, I have added an optional ingredient. It's optional, but to me it's necessary. I have added 1 teaspoon of instant espresso powder. You're not going to taste coffee in this cake. It's just going to bring out those chocolate notes and make this cake taste amazing. If you don't have the instant espresso powder, but you have some hot coffee in the house, go ahead and put in a 1/2 cup of hot coffee. Now, and the minute that coffee hits that chocolate, you start smelling the best chocolate notes in there. I mean, it brings out a flavor in that chocolate that you would not believe. And like I said, I am using my hands to mix this up. You can use a hand mixer, you can use a stand mixer. But this cake is so darn easy, you really don't need that. And see, your batter's already loosening up. When your batter is perfect with this cake, it's going to look very similar to chocolate pudding. That's what your batter is gonna look like. It's gonna look like a looser chocolate pudding. I am just, at this point, I have switched to a whisk so that I can get in there and get it mixed really well and get any lumps out, because you want a nice smooth batter. And this smells insane. If you are a chocolate lover like I am, this is your cake. Or if you know a chocolate lover, make this cake for them. They will love you forever. And see, just that quick, you've got a beautiful, beautiful batter. And see, it's kind of almost looks like a thin chocolate pudding. See, I'll show you. See, it kind of looks like a thin chocolate pudding. Now, at this point, you want to have greased your pans, whatever kind of pan you choose to use. Like I told you, I'm making a 13 by 9. I'm just doing a sheet cake because this is just a weekday. This is just a weekday fun dessert surprise for Jason. So you can just spray it up with cooking spray, or you can grease it. And now we're just going to throw our cake batter into our pan, or pans, whichever you choose. Now, This is a little trick. You see, there's a lot of, if you could see it, you probably can't see it real well on camera. There are a lot of air bubbles at the top of the cake. It's going to create holes in your cake. You really don't want that. So you want to pick up your pans and drop them. You want to pick them up just about an inch above the counter and drop it. And all of those bubbles will pop. Now you want to put this in your 350 degree oven. About halfway through, you want to test it, and if it seems like it's going to get a little too brown on the bottom, then you want to flip it up to the top rack so that it can finish baking to perfection. And you will know it's done when you press in the middle and hit, kind of springs back, doesn't leave your fingerprints there anymore, and it'll start to pull away just a little bit. But mostly when you insert a toothpick in the center and it comes out with moist, fudgy crumbs, not clean. Do not pull it out when there's clean, when your toothpick is clean. Your cake will overcook during carryover cook. You don't want wet batter. You don't want wet batter on your toothpick. You don't want it dry and clean. You want it to have beautiful moist crumbs, and then you will have the best moist cake. So I'm gonna pop this in the oven and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done, and then we'll do that amazing frosting. This beauty is out of the oven now, and as you can see, it is absolutely gorgeous, and this whole house smells amazing. And see, when you push on it, see, it kind of springs back just a little bit. It doesn't like bounce, but it springs back just a little bit. And when I inserted a toothpick in the center, it came out with moist, fudgy crumbs, not clean. Because carryover cook, the heat from the pan and the heat still remaining in the cake, carryover cook's going to kick in, and all that heat is going to finish baking it. So it's going to bake to moist, beautiful perfection at that point. And you will notice that it's starting to pull away from the sides just a little bit. So that's all of your telltale signs that it's done. Now, I know this is oddly specific, but for my pan and my oven, it baked for exactly 32 minutes. I will say the time will be between 30 and 35 minutes. It may take less time depending on the type of pan you use. And if you choose to do a round cake, if you choose to do a layer cake, it will depend on how long you bake. It will depend on whether it's in an 8-inch pan or a 9-inch pan. So I will say for layer cakes, it will take between 12 and 20 minutes depending on which size pan you use. Now you want to let this cool absolutely completely. No heat left on it at all. And when it's completely cool, I'll come back and I'll show you how to make that luscious chocolate buttercream frosting. Now our cake is all cooled and ready for me to make this luscious chocolate buttercream frosting. So here's how you do it. You do have to use a mixer for this. Otherwise it's going to be quite the arm workout. I'm using a KitchenAid. You can just use a hand mixer. It's fine. What you want to start with is 1 cup, which is 2 sticks, of softened unsalted butter. You know it's softened when you push on it and your finger pushes right in. You know it's soft enough. Now, if you forgot to lay it out to soften to room temperature, don't worry about it. Just pop the sticks in the microwave for about 5 to 10 seconds. They'll be soft. Now, it's very important that you soften that butter. If you do not soften that butter, you are going to end up with little pearls of cold butter throughout your frosting instead of a nice smooth buttercream, which we do not want. So now I'm going to cream this butter up. This butter is now all creamed up, and we're ready for the next step. I've scraped down my bowl, and now we are going to add 1/2 cup of cocoa powder and just a pinch of salt. That pinch of salt is going to make all the difference. Now, over here on some wax paper, we have 3 cups of powdered sugar measured out. I put it on wax paper so it's easier to funnel into my bowl. Now you want to dump in about half of that powdered sugar. Now you want to mix this up until your powdered sugar, till the half of your powdered sugar and your cocoa powder is all mixed into your butter. Be sure and start out on low speed or you're going to be wearing that powdered sugar and cocoa powder. Now you want it to look like a thick paste. See? It looks kind of like a thick chocolatey paste. That's what you want it to look like. Now you want to scrape down your bowl really well. Scrape down your paddle. Make sure you get all that butter in there because butter tends to collect on your paddle. Now we are going to add 2 teaspoons, roughly measured in my case, of vanilla extract. And we are going to add the rest of our powdered sugar. Now we are going to start whipping this up again on low speed. At this point, you're going to say, that is not a delicious spreadable frosting. That's just a clump of chocolate modeling clay. Because that's kind of what it looks like right now. The next step is key to making really good chocolate buttercream. In this cup, we have 4 tablespoons of heavy cream. We may or may not use all of that. You will need anywhere from 2 to 4 tablespoons. We're going to start by pouring half of this in. And then we'll see where we're at. You're going to whip it up until you get a nice, smooth, spreadable, beautiful chocolate buttercream. And as you can see, it's became pretty pale now, but it's still too thick. So we're going to add another tablespoon of our heavy cream. Now we are almost there, but I think we need that last tablespoon of heavy cream. Now you may or may not. It depends on the day. If it's a very dry day like it is here, you may need all 4 just like I did. If it's raining, you may only need 2. So once you put in that first 2, after that just put in a tablespoon at a time. Now it's all coming together really nicely. As you can see, it's all coming together really nicely. Really smooth, really delicious. But the key to making great chocolate buttercream is in the beating. You want to be sure and scrape down this bowl a lot because you don't want to leave any of that chocolate behind. Now for what's going to make it a truly delicious, fluffy buttercream. Now you want to beat this on a pretty high speed for about 1 minute to 2 minutes until it's nice and fluffy. And after just 2 minutes of beating on a fairly high speed, you have this beautiful, beautiful, rich, fluffy, luscious chocolate buttercream. Now we have our cooled cake, and we're just gonna plop some of this beautiful buttercream on top of our cake. Now you can use a spatula, an offset spatula, or just do like me and use a butter knife. And you want to frost up your cake. Now this buttercream is so fluffy and so luscious that it's so easy to spread on your cake. So I'm going to spare you the boring details of watching me ice this whole cake, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Now there it is. There is our beautiful, homemade, made from scratch chocolate cake with beautiful, luscious chocolate buttercream frosting. You will get to see just how delicious this is when Jason tries a piece for you.
And as always, I get the pleasure of tasting this delicious cake. That's awesome. What a wonderful, delicious chocolate cake. The icing is not too sweet. It's good. It's a good chocolate flavor. The problem I get a lot of times with chocolate cake and chocolate icing is that there's not enough chocolate flavor. It just gets sweet. And this is not like that. This is chocolate. Obviously there's a little sweetness to it. It's confection, it's cake. But it's chocolate. You get just a great chocolate flavor. And I'll tell you something right now. This full cake is too much for me and Angela both. I mean, that's a lot of cake for 2 people. So we split that cake in half, put it half of it in an airtight container, and we're gonna freeze it. Okay, so if it's too much cake, it is for us. We're gonna freeze half of it, eat half now, eat half next week or 2, right? But we're not gonna try to eat it all right now. That's a lot. So that's a good tip in case you've got something like that. You can freeze it. It will freeze just fine. But this cake is worth the effort. It's worth the time. It's an amazing, just beautiful, traditional chocolate cake. Alright, so thank you guys so much for watching. We do appreciate it. Hey, my name is Jason, the culinary genius back there. Her name's Angela Kay. It's Art of Creation Homestead. We love you guys. God bless you and goodbye.